The Newcomer, page 178. The commons were as empty as a runner's road had been. Terry and Lenise reached Chardonnay's house where Lenise started to knock on the door, but it opened before she could. They entered the foyer. Chardonnay stood there stunned. She'd never seen a mail before. Containing her surprise with her duty, she reminded herself that many of the ordinary things were about to happen, and welcomed this mail with the dignity he deserved and a prayer of thanks for being able to meet him. Diana was also in the foyer. "Well, Diana," Lenise snarled, "I'm so glad that you could make it." Lenise's feelings weren't as concealed as Chardonnay's. "It wasn't my choice," Diana answered. "I was abducted." Fedora interrupted the grand reunion. "We couldn't take the chance that she couldn't come. The sliver is waiting. You need to board it before it is detected." Momentarily forgetting her manners, Fedora then turned to Terry. "It's a pleasure to meet you," she exclaimed. Terry nodded. They left the house and hurried through the streets. No one who saw them pass looked upon them with malice. All eyes that beheld the travelers did so feeling blessed by the sight. While they walked, Fedora explained that the sliver was programmed to bring the three to their destination and then return them after a pre-programmed amount of time had passed. Diana was only needed in case something went wrong. Diana scoffed at the obvious information. Fedora turned to her, warning her not to tamper with the computer or the controls. "A message will be sent to us as soon as you land. If you hinder this operation in any way, your death will await your arrival." Diana said nothing. "After you had located the object, return the sliver immediately. Its programming allows only enough time for the object's retrieval before it takes off." To Diana she said, "Know this. Any deviation from my instructions will be reported before the sliver returns." They boarded, and as soon as the sliver was in the air, Diana lunged at Lenise. Terry pried her off and sat her in the chair in the control vestibule. "I'd take care if I were you," he shouted. "It won't be necessary for us to return to Nision to witness your death." At the commons, Chardonnay pleaded with Fedora, but Fedora remained constant. "Yes, Chardonnay, Diana is up to something, but her idle assault wasn't the plan in mind. She did that to see if the sliver was being monitored." "All the more reason to turn the craft around," Chardonnay said. "No, I'm afraid that our part in this is finished. The mission is in his hands now." Her eyes clouded over in thought of what lay ahead. Knowing each quirk in the revolution was no help for the prophet. Psychic insight sporting a blindfold. "The revolution has indeed begun," she said, "and will continue according to God's plans. Just remember," she added, turning to walk back to the prayer house, "sometime God uses a different rule book than we do." The news that the sliver was on its way to reach Zantok while Joyce of Deborah was working on the computer. If the code had been seen by anyone besides Joyce, the appearance of the number would have been contributed to a typo, but seeing the number was all that she needed. She didn't know that Terry had gone with Anise. She would, though, before the day was over. Lois was online in Nision, informing the network of this unique addition to the plans. As she entered this information, her message window opened, revealing the list of who would be attending the upcoming wagers. She didn't save the information, for she knew that it would be programmed into Susan's head housekeeper's pinboard, but on Susan's pinboard it would not be categorized according to each person's sympathies, instead of by their ranking as it normally would. Known by the enemies of the circle, their staff and their unwilling charges would be located in one wing of the castle. Circle friends, their staff and charges were to be located in another wing. The information window closed and Lois finished her duty, safe in her knowledge that all was still according to plan. When Joyce finished typing her list, she signed off too. Both ladies offered a silent prayer to God before leaving for their away duties. For the precious moments when life was beautiful and everything was right. Maybe it was while they sat at breakfast and made plans for the day. It wasn't by her design that Lenise found herself on a sliver, heading for a forbidden location to perform an unspeakable task. Yet there she was, hurrying towards a future in which she had no control, free falling with life growing inside of her, accompanied by an enemy who used to be her friend, and a friend who used to be her enemy. Despite the recklessness that the trip afforded her, she was not naive. She knew that Diana was cemented in her hate, so she watched over her like Poe's raven. Terry was stoically calm, as if hadn't spent his life in isolated safe rooms, but in the bed of a voracious lover when he was free from his duties of espionage. She smiled at the sight of him, his eyes glued to the control vestibule, and she thanked Fedora's God that he was there. Maybe it was that night when the children were saved. Susan carried her pinboard with her wherever she went, so the sight of her scurrying down the hall with it was a common one. Humming to herself as she often did, she made her way to Lanice's chambers while programming her board. The scant information that Fedora gave her had processed her into her only plan. A former alteration had allowed her to save time by having a pinboard ready to feed commands into Lanice's computer. Susan's pinboard was a handheld computer modem, not just a log of household chores and rosters equipped with a keyboard for entering information as it originally had been. After opening Lanice's door, she used Lanice's code to keep the door locked unless opened by Susan. She passed through the foyer, heading straight for the computer. She hooked her board to it and watched Lanice's screen display her handiwork. A diagram of the chambers blipped and remained on the monitor. On the map was a red blinking arrow indicating where Lanice had spliced into the room's wiring. The picture remained for only a moment before Susan's program took over again to find the exact location of the splice. The computer then played another command to decipher Lanice's draw code. While it played with various numbers, the chamber door buzzed. Over the intercom, just Stephanie, Susan heard a voice requesting admittance. It was Nancy. Susan ran to the door to clear the panel block, but Nancy had been, according to procedure, granted admittance to Stephanie. As soon as Susan's last number was entered, the door opened. Lanice was a sympathizer, but she was still shocked to see Susan at the door. She was not alarmed by her presence in the room, knowing her connection with the circle. She just didn't think that there was anyone in there. The door closed behind her and locked. "Leave the package where you normally would," Susan instructed. The runner did so, placing it on the receiving table in the foyer. "Now leave. Don't forget to buzz Stephanie so that she may lock the door." Without any questions, Nancy did what Susan asked, blessing Susan's mission with a silent prayer. The door clicked, and Susan went to the panel to enter Lanice's block. The computer had found the combination and entered it while Susan was busy. She went to Lanice's headboard, where she had seen the arrow, and discovered the open drawer jutting out from the nightstand. Still crammed inside of it was a lining from Bertha's shawl and pieces of white thread. Taking them out, she placed them into her satchel, along with the cigarettes and matches. Under these, she found Rachel's ashtray. "Marvelous job," she exclaimed while disconnecting the ashtray from the wiring. She painstakingly laced the frayed ends back together, covered them with tape, fished them back into the headboard where they belonged, and popped the ashtray into her satchel. In the corner of the drawer, she found the silver key. She took it out and kissed it, then put it inside the zippered pouch of her satchel. While closing the drawer, she felt something else moving inside. Pulling it back open, she found a white figurine of a horse. Fedora hadn't mentioned that, so she left it there and realized that, besides the horse, the drawer was now empty. This wouldn't make sense. A secret drawer with no secrets? She wandered about the Queen's chamber searching for articles that a queen might want to conceal, jewelry, makeup, messages, anything that Susan could justify leaving there, for she knew the discovery of the drawer was approaching. As she came from the room of mirrors, she spied the package that had recently been delivered. Thinking that it may have a message from the Commons, she read its order slip. It had come from within the castle. It was sent from Dr. Diana. Wondering what a rapist would send her victim, she tore into it and opened the box. Wincing in disgust, she found the perfect item for the drawer, went over to it and dumped the contents into it before closing the drawer. Confident that Lenice's chambers were cleared, she erased her tracks on the computer, turned it off, disconnected her pin board, and stuffed the box and its wrapping into her large bag. Taking one last look around, she walked towards the door, smiling when she came across the empty foyer table.